Well, hello, everyone. Welcome to this podcast here on the EagleHeart Shaman channel. I'm so excited today because I get to interview one of my dearest to dearest friends, Dr. Carol Talbot. So, Carol and I have known each other for years and years and years. And many of you will know Carol, you'll recognize her because normally she interviews me. But we're going to trade seats this time. And I get to interview her because she's done something really incredible. And she started a whole revolution on the spiritual front that I think you need to know about. So I don't know if all of you know, but one of the things that I love about Carol is that she really, really is a leader in the human potential movement. And we talk a lot about human potential, but Carol really does. She leads this movement. She's tried lots of things, she's focused on lots of things, and she goes hard and serious through human potentiality, and she really does. And she blends that with consciousness studies. And then she's one of the few people that I can talk to about quantum science. So much so that she went off and got a crazy PhD in, I have to read this, quantum morphogenetic physics. It wasn't easy. It was not an easy, it wasn't a breeze to get that PhD. So the thing that we're focusing on today, and the reason that I said, Carol, please, please, can we do this podcast, is because it's the next evolution in intelligence, multidimensional intelligence. So welcome. Welcome, my dear friend.
Thank you. And as you said, it is a little bit strange being the other way around because I even had to go,
Yeah. So let's kick off with multidimensional intelligence. So I know that you're working on a third book that's in development. It's with the editor as we speak, but it's about this idea of multidimensional intelligence. And that's a quantum thing, yeah?
Yes, I'm not so keen on although my PhD is in quantum morphogenetic physics and science, quantum tends to be an overused word, so we could call it the spiritual sciences, which takes away any fluff from the sort of spiritual
Oh,
field.
sure.
But so it blends the two, I would say. So most people have got that sense that there's something more to them than meets the eye, or most people have hit that point where they have those existential questions of who am I? What's this life really all about? Or maybe they've had those times of synchronicity or intuition. Usually, those first signs of intuition are, I should have listened to what that voice told me. It's usually in hindsight rather than sort of actual in the moment. So, multidimensional intelligence supersedes and encompasses all the other intelligences. So we have intellectual intelligence, IQ, we have emotional intelligence, we have spiritual intelligence, there's Howard Gardner's multiple intelligences. And of course, through all our senses, we have, so many intelligences available to us. However, think of a radio tuner where we're tuned in to this physical reality. And that's where most people stay tuned in. But there are actually thousands and thousands of different channels that we can tune into. And so multidimensional intelligence encapsulates all that, except expands you out. Rather than having a label, which from education, you normally in the learning and development field, you get given the objectives and then it's like it comes in. It works the other way round. It's understanding this is you now, except it's more, there's more, there's more. It's that evolution of true human potential. So it allows you to see more, hear more, understand yourself from an energetic perspective, and realize that just a portion of consciousness is encapsulated in this physical form. But really, we're bathing in a soup of consciousness. And once you open up to more of that, you recognize more in all ways, seeing, hearing, that sense of being.
One of the things that you talk about in this idea is that it's a remembered sense. Why do you say remembered?
Because it is who we truly are, and we've forgotten. it said that only less than 90% of the stream of consciousness that should be available to us is turned off. So it's like our consciousness stream is on a dimmer switch, and only a fraction of it is available, which means that we don't really remember who we are. So it also comes down to our DNA. Our DNA holds a lot of distortions, a lot. If you understand our true cosmic history, a lot of that goes through digressed races and over the millennia, but it's also further perpetrated by what we eat, the food and the toxins. And when I just say the food, I also mean other toxins. There's mental toxins from the conditioning and programming that we've been through, emotional toxins, and as I said, the physical toxins from the air that we breathe and the food. So the way that I think of DNA is it's multidimensional rather than most people's perspective of it's just kind of like your inheritance, what color your eyes will be and your hair and whatever. It's far more than that. It's a transmitter and receiver of consciousness. So if you think of your DNA like a film strip, when light hits the film strip, it projects what's on that film strip onto a screen, i.e., your outer reality. But if there's scratches and glitches on that film strip, then there's going to be glitches and it's going to be a little bit scratchy on that projection on your outer reality. And so it is with your DNA. If your DNA has distortions, then your reality is going to be glitchy. Because when consciousness comes in and projects it onto the screen, the little amount of consciousness that can come in, then there's going to be distortions in your physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual reality. So as you clean up your DNA, then the film strip becomes clearer and clearer and clearer, and you become a beautiful transmitter and receiver of consciousness. You understand that there's portions of your identity at the soul level, at the oversoul, at the avatar, the rishi, the bodhi. You understand the connection to source, and you open up to a whole new dimensional awareness. It's huge,
Well,
huge.
I love that one of the things that I've taken from our conversations is to rethink of our DNA as an antenna. That
Yes.
it's not just a program that we're stuck with. It's actually an antenna that's receiving all kinds of information all the time. I love that.
Well, that's where, mainstream science calls it, junk DNA. So if you have a treasure chest, given a key, open the treasure chest, but finds it just opens a very small portion. The rest is what science calls junk DNA. I dislike that word. I prefer the word intron, because to me, intron means possibilities, potential. And my goal is always to take people beyond the boundaries of who they believe themselves to be and
Yes.
open up to more potential, more possibilities. So if you're just playing one or two notes on that musical instrument, then imagine bringing in more instruments and bringing on board a symphony. And
Mm.
that's the gateway that you're opening up to.
Yeah. Beautiful, beautiful. So if this takes us to who we really, really are, in your experience, as you explain this to people, there's a kind of an aha thing that must be happening where people they want it or they recognize it or how do people come on board with you? Where's the aha? Where does it lead?
Okay, so going back to that remembrance thing, and the reason that many people say the book is a remembrance, my belief is that when you read something, hear something, or see something that hits that note, that chord that resonates with you, we tend to assign it to something else or someone else. Whereas I believe it's an echo of that
Uh,
which you already know. So that's when, rather than it's presented as new material, it's coming from the belief that all of this is available to you. And it's really just bringing it back online. So if you have that aha moment or that almost like a deja vu, it's actually part of you coming online and saying, I'm here, I'm ready to be remembered.
Mm. So part of your job in working with people is just to go, yes, yes, yes.
Yes, I don't know whether you remember back to those days when you used to have those little dogs in the car that, went like this.
Yeah,
It's what I call the nodding dog.
yeah, yeah.
And if you think about, when you've read books, and I remember reading a particularly complicated book, and I'd taken it with me to read on a long train journey. And I remember not really getting much past the first or second page. It just didn't resonate. And I kept going back, sitting with it, and it just wasn't my time. And then I remember coming back to that book years later, and I could not put it down. Everything hit the right note, hit the right code. It sang to me. So I do also believe there's a time and place. So, for instance, I think I've shared this with you before. In terms of my studies in quantum morphogenetic physics, I was coming back from a program in the US. And I stopped by in England to see my mom, and she showed me a manual of a training program she'd been on decades before. And it looked interesting and very complicated. So it was one of those, thanks, very nice, and hand it back times. And my mother had also said the same thing. It was very complicated and hadn't resonated at the time. Anyway, when I got back to Dubai, I saw there was a talk going on at one of the small centers here, and I went along. And when I went into the lecture, again, I had that bing, bing, bing moment. There's something more for me to learn here. So I booked a session with this person the next day. And we got on like a house on fire because when we got talking, he knew the course I'd just been on in the States. In fact, he used to be her promoter. And
Oh,
although there was alignment, their paths went in slightly different directions. But what he was saying aligned very, very well. And then he had to take a phone call. And he said, oh, look, while I take this phone call, just have a look at this manual. I opened the manual.
oh,
Bing, bing, bing. It was the same manual my mother well, it looked the same. When I got back, I immediately called my mum and said, show me that manual again. And his name was on the manual. He had been on one of the first programs he and his then wife had run in the UK at that time, and my mother was on it.
crazy.
So when I think about the synchronicities, and particularly with it wasn't called quantum morphogenetic science at that time, and how certain people and situations came about, even how we ended up meeting John Paul. I mean, we never actually met in person for a long time. You were just on one of the groups that I was part of with our South African friends and tribe, and I reached out to you. And we had a conversation, and there started a series of podcasts and conversations. And you even arrived here that winter, and we ended up doing a fire ceremony together.
It-
The story evolves.
So I think there is something about the timing, and you've said this as well, that the work that you've done for all of your life seems to be coming to a point with this. This whole idea of multidimensional intelligence is the apex of so much of your learning. Why do you think now?
I have no idea, John Paul. When I think about all the years that I've been that seeker, that searcher, what next? What is it? What's that thing? And the frustration that you go through. Yet, in some ways, the frustration was the gift because it kept me seeking, searching, and a learner to do some of the untraditional paths, like going in the dark room and spending 10 days, 10 nights in complete and utter darkness. And when I talk about darkness, you hold up your hand, you know it's there and you cannot see it. But it opens up a whole new level of awareness of who you are. And of course, some people would be horrified to spend 10 days, 10 nights in the dark. And if I go back 15 years, I would have been, because I was scared of the dark. The darkness was warm, it was embracing, it was a phenomenal experience. I spent a month in the US learning how to walk on water. Did I succeed? Sadly, no, I sank every time. But as you know, I have been running fire walking experiences for over 20 years now. And of course, in the last couple of years, when I think about making my transition more to source feeding, which is the breatharian path, that had been on my radar for quite some time. And of course, the COVID halt put a stop to that for a couple of years, which at the time was frustrating. But when I think about it now, it was perfect. So last year, I was spent my time writing my thesis and my PhD on bioregenesis of the human DNA blueprint through source feeding, and turned that into a book that I thought that was it. And I have long gaps between my books. So when March came around and I ended up writing another book, this was more of this has to come out. And it came very, very quickly. And to me, it's, as you said, a remembrance and a legacy piece, a gift to humanity.
Do you think that the dark room and the source feeding stuff, do you think that opened up more depth to your multidimensional intelligence? Do you think it triggered any?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And my reason for doing the source feeding and the breatharian path was to see if nourishing your body in other ways um, allows the DNA to repair. And of course, there's a lot of research around nourishing yourself from prana, from light, even structuring your water, your understanding your own endogenous water. So absolutely, I believe more came on stream. Absolutely.
Sorry, you're in your what water? Your endogenous?
I love the word endogenous, but let me explain it. I do love the English language. It's beautiful, and yet sometimes you have to kind of like break it down. So endogenous means your own natural living water. So the old model is, drink 8 liters of water a day. But then, of course, and a lot of people go into water fasting, but your body still has to deal with the microplastics and the toxins in the water. So dry fasting is an alternative. And there's a lot of research coming out of Russia on this, that when you dry fast, okay, it can be pretty intense if your body is not clean. But it's something that I do at least once a week for about 18 to 24 hours. And now, because my body is cleaner, I don't get dry mouth. When you first do this, you literally need to go into Vipassana. You can't speak. It's like mouth so dry, there's nothing there. And you feel weak and you feel shriveled up like a prune. However, if you stay with it squeezes your body to start releasing its own natural water from the cells. So the old myth that you will die after 3 days without water is absolutely untrue. I mean, we're 70 to 80% water. You'd need to pee a lot to get all that water out. So your cells, your body loves its own natural living water. And of course, when you're squeezing it through dry fasting, you are also telling the body to release the stem cell crew to start repair, which,
Yeah.
is much more kinder to your system. So dry fasting on a regular basis is a great way to kickstart your system to repair. And in Russia, particularly with one of the researchers, I believe he's called Sergei Filanov, he takes people on 7-day to 11-day dry fast. Now, 11 days are only if they're on life-threatening diseases. So this is not something you want to go ahead with alone. And particularly if you're riddled with, parasites, and most people have parasites if your system's not clear. So, first step when people are detoxing physically is a parasite cleanse before you go to the sort of cellular cleanse. Again, most people's cells are clogged up, blocked. So they have a cupboard full of supplements which do absolutely nothing because the cells can't absorb any of that. So there's a particular protocol to go through. And of course, then, we go into like the dark room, the perception that's projected into the world and the programming and the conditioning is light, good, dark, bad. Yet you, as you know, in your shamanic work, a lot of ceremonies happen when the sun goes down and in darkness because there's so many gifts there. And for me, when you exist, but you can't see, you can hear, but it strips away you to your very, very core. And I believe it was Carlos Castaneda in a lot of his books about his experiences with the Mexican shaman, Don Juan Matus, talks about recapitulation. That every experience you have, everyone you've met, all the trauma, you're giving away part of your energy. And those people are taking on board, taking some of your energy. So as you get older, you become more and more depleted. So instead of waiting for that transition, that death rite to reclaim who you are, you have an opportunity to do that in this lifetime. And for me, my darkroom experience offered me an opportunity for recapitulation that I didn't expect. Memories and people that I hadn't thought of in a long time came up for clearance. And everything slows down because, of course, you don't have time. And space completely shifts. It, again, phenomenal experience.
Right. So the multidimensional intelligence is living dormant within all of us. Is that fair to say?
Yes.
And that there are the extreme experiences, fire walking, dark room, dry fasting. There are things that will open you to that. But I think the challenge for all of us is to be able to walk in that multidimensional intelligence place where that's just part of who we are. Where, as you say, remember it. Yeah. Yeah.
Isn't that what you did on your shamanic initiation? I
Yeah.
mean, when I think back to the journey you shared with me, there was, from a gift, a birthday present gift, a reading, and then, going on that course, and then, taking that leap of faith, that trust, complete trust for all those years. There was something in you that was calling out for more.
Well,
And
people.
you embrace that call.
Well,
So it's switching
so
on that little receiver.
yeah, because people always say, with the sight whispering or something, they say, "Well, is this something that anybody can do? I mean, can I do this?" And I think I'm going to lean on this multidimensional intelligence that you have this. I always say to people, it's just a question of practice. It's about a question of taking this on. And I think one of the challenges is people go, "Well, how do I know I'm just not making this up? How do I know that what my DNA antenna is receiving is not just something that I'm inventing?"
And it's a bit like going to a huge buffet and just sampling a small portion of the things that you know and like. And it's about being open to possibilities and potential and trying something new. And if you don't like it, if it's not for you, it's fine. And so throughout the book, I also share certain practices that you can take on board, small practices that you can just start to embody so that the last chapter talks about 5 different archetypes. And normally, when you talk about archetypes, you think about, oh, I'll do a quiz and I'm either this or that. And it's all of you and more. And yet, you may resonate with one or the other. So, again, I go back to your own shamanic experience and what was your gift. Here's all the different gifts and talents available to you, and what's your superpower? And of course, it's the site whisperer, the plant whisperer. And do you do all the other things? Absolutely. But that's your sort of number one. So in the archetypes, there's the seer, there's the tuner, there's the navigator, there's the transmitter, there's the architect. So are you more gifted in seeing more, hearing more, or is it in creation? Is it as knowing where to go at the right time? Is it understanding that your energy impacts other people? So if you think about it, all organisms read energy, but as human beings, we've got a little bit lazy. Yet most of us will walk into a room and go, "Oh, good vibe, bad vibe." Same with when we meet people, we either connect and resonate. There's that click, or there's not. So, understanding our energetic experience and our energetic power gives you the choice of, when you walk into the room, knowing we have this electromagnetic field. And of course, then we go into the research from the Heart Math Institute and many other fields of understanding that we impact others. And wouldn't you want to impact others in a positive and powerful way, that when they leave your space or place or a conversation, they feel better, they start to open up to new possibilities?
Yeah.
So for me, whether it's a keynote, a book, a sentence, if you can switch that light bulb on, open up or turn up that dimmer switch so more consciousness comes through, then, as you know, whether that's in a loud way or a quiet way, that's our gift.
Yep. No, I've always wanted to be secretly in the room when you do one of your keynotes, because I would love to look at the audience and watch all the light bulbs go on over people's heads as you talk and things land and they're like, yes, 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 me. It's so,
Well, in some ways, you've experienced that, John Paul, because remember, you landed after a kind of like long flight, first thing in the morning. You didn't sleep. It was, I don't know, the last Wednesday of the month, when from the Zoroastrian tradition, they leap across the fire. And I said, well, I usually am invited to do a fire ceremony.
yeah,
How about you joining me? And I just said, look, I have this in mind. That was it.
yeah,
And how beautifully it flowed, and how engaged the group were, and that they sort of, came up to us afterwards and wanted to continue the conversation. And, you must have seen the sparks fly, not just from the fire, but from everybody's field as well. It was such a magical night. It really was.
yeah. Well, I can't wait for the book to come out. So I'm going to change gears and talk about the field scan. Is that okay?
Absolutely.
So, did these happen simultaneously, or was there a gap in time between the book and the multidimensional field scan?
There was a gap in time of about, I wrote the book in March, first draft, and then, as you know, you go through several drafts. So I would say it's about 3 months gap,
Yeah,
and unexpected.
really.
Um, yes, and from knowing me, that this is something that I have desired, wanted, been open to. And it came in the most extraordinary way through a conversation with somebody. Again, these are the seeds planted that you never know. It's somebody I met on a program in about 2015, 2016. And when I looked at my notes and messages from him, the last time we were in contact with a short message was in 2020. He reached out to me and said, I need to speak with you. And so, I thought, oh, he's in trouble. Something's come up. And he planted, through our conversation, some very interesting concepts. And, I've been like a child with a new toy. It's been phenomenal, because I needed also to go through a very extensive test phase. I had a lot of questions myself, and it's absolutely been phenomenal, the feedback that I've had from people. And as you know, I was very honored when you asked if I could do a field scan for you. And it's a pleasure. They're completely different because it's not a reading or anything like that. Again, it's the remembrance. And it's for me going into a particular state and being a mirror of that which is in your field. So it's nothing to do with me. And if I've had times where I feel that my own perception comes in, and it has, when I've worked with people that I know, and that's the beauty of testing with people I have no knowledge about whatsoever. But with people I know, it's like, oh, not the way I thought they'd be. And then I go, no, that's my perception. That's the way, how I perceive them through my glasses. I need to strip that away and come from what I call the 0 point consciousness field.
Yep. No, it's an incredible thing. This, what you're calling just a simple field scan is incredible. So I'm so glad that we did this before that, you did the scan of me of my field, because it's a reflection that we don't see. We don't have the field mirror. So if you can be that field mirror for us and say, well, this is what we see, it's extraordinary. Because as I read through the report, you go, yes, oh, that's really helpful. So much was like when you see your a reflection in the mirror and you think, okay, or you see something and you're like, oh yeah, that looks okay. And it's a mirror. You're right. It's just a mirror. And I love the fact that you're saying, look, this is not a reading. This is not, your spirit guides telling me what you should do. This is your field. This is what it looks like. These are what's involved in it. It was just incredible. And
And
then,
it's evolving, John Paul.
yeah,
There's more than just the multidimensional field scan. There's the mastery mapping frequency inner technology as well, which measures your baseline frequency now. And as you know, in the scan, it often provides optimal timelines, where you are now and some optimal timelines that are opening up for you. And people say, yeah, but how can I get onto that? Or maybe they want more insights of, next step. So if I get the baseline signature frequency of where you are now and the baseline frequency signature of your optimal timeline, there's a gap. Now, you can't slap people there because they can't hold it. It's a bit like being on a plant medicine experience. It's amazing there, what you see, what you hear, but you can't drive your car or function in the real world. And of course, we even know people who have very, real challenges because of their frequency of being grounded. And you will also recognize this having, when I've being totally open in all those chakras and to remain grounded can sometimes be challenging. So, getting people there, you have to take incremental steps to entrain them. So it becomes something new to hold. So in a retreat where you can give people an immersive experience and also continue the guidance afterwards so that they can hold that field is one way. But as I said, to help them see the difference and then give them incremental steps to entrain. And of course, as you know, I never write about something. I never share something or teach something that I've not experienced myself. So, for example, I couldn't be running a darkroom experience if I hadn't been there myself. I couldn't be writing a book on source feeding if I am not experiencing it myself. So, am I the biggest guinea pig? Absolutely.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, so for just to help people understand, so this field scan that happens right now, as you're saying, it evolves, but right now there's 12 different components that you look at 12 different things in the mirror and say this is what is reflected back in 12 things. So let's jump to the timeline one, because I think that's the most fascinating for everyone, is to say, so I'm operating This is what's going on. There are blocks and there are things that are in the way. Yes, fine. There are obstacles. Yes, fine. But what am I supposed to be doing? I get that a lot. What's my purpose? What am I supposed to be doing? And it's so empowering when you say it's quite simple because but that's tricky, is the moving across. So let's talk about the timeline misalignments.
Yeah, which goes into the karmic patterns
Okay.
and the ancestral distortions. And of course, we know people are going on so many experiences to clear those patterns, but they're clearing patterns from a place of not knowing what those patterns are. They may have a clue. So again, this fast tracks you. It's like being able to see your own backside and going, okay. So, for example, I was speaking with somebody a couple of days ago who does family constellations work, which is
Yeah.
superb work. Except often when people come to an experience, they're working with what comes up in the moment. But imagine having had a multidimensional field scan and you've been able to know what the karmic loops are and the ancestral patterns are, which means you can fast track and bring to light that experience and enact it in the family constellations work. So it's an opportunity to sort of fast track. Now, again, going back to your question, where so many people are at that stage where, what next? What's my purpose? And I'm a great believer, and I'm sure you are, that often it's not a purpose for your whole life, it's a purpose for right now. So you go back to, your purpose as a theatre director and stage director and that work, which is still ongoing, yet there was an even bigger purpose. And now there's an even bigger purpose as you speak for those sacred sites and the plants and the trees. So when I've gone in, sometimes people have a mental loop pattern.
Mm.
And if I'm a mirror, I can only mirror what's there. And so that loop, that mental loop, that mental conditioning, emotional conditioning, the karma, it's like the mess that's in there. So all I can reflect back sometimes is the mess, which sometimes for them can seem a little bit fluffy. And so, again, this is where I have to be very clear. So when some people see pictures or hear sounds, they interpret those pictures and sounds through their own filters, their own model of the world. I am not in this picture. I'm mirroring back. So with one person who was very frustrated because, yeah, his field scan resonated with him 100%. And then as it settled over the next couple of weeks, he was still, what do I do? And so I went back into the field, but I was mirroring this pattern mental loop that he had. So again, coming back into this place, I thought, what could I do? Well, what if I come from a place where I presuppose he's already hit the optimal timeline and I mirror the future, 3 months, 6 months, 18 months. So of course I tested that on myself. And I also then went to mirror from that perspective. And it was much more valuable for him. Now, to me, there's some caveats because with people wanting to know their purpose, sometimes there's certain things that need to be cleared, hence the karmic patterns, the ancestral patterns, certain decisions and choice points need to be made. So the mere fact that they're asking for a multidimensional field scan shows me that they're at that liminal point, that, superposition,
Yep.
where all possibilities are there. It's like being in a sphere and there's 360 degrees of possibility. Shall I go for this door, this door, this door, this door? And until they make a decision, it's not there. We go back to, Schrodinger's cat, that famous thought experiment where there's a cat in a sealed box with a container of poison. And if the poison breaks, then the cat would die. If it stays sealed, then the cat's fine. But until you sort of open the cage, the cat is in that superposition of it's either dead or alive. And then you open the cage and the cat's alive. So in your model of the world, the cat's alive. Yet, if you come from multiple timeline perspectives, what happens to the other versions of the cat? The cat that got rescued, even though the poison file broken, the cat that died, where is it now? What's its? So again, we are not just one reality, we are multiple realities and multiple timelines. And which one are we choosing to bring into focus, so to speak? And that's the one we are living right now. So I also have to work with a very high degree of integrity in that understanding that people have choice points, and that until some of those choice points and decisions are made, then those timelines are not going to be available. So with another person, I gave him certain things where he can make a choice and not the whole box, because then he may sit and do nothing and just think, okay, easy breezy. So I feel that's important, that there's still the work to be done.
So when you're doing the scan and you're looking at potential timelines that are in someone's field, are you seeing that these are optional, or is one coming closer to the person? How does that look to you when in the mirror?
Again, they're different. Some people have lots of options. Some people have none, and some people just need to broaden the one they're on, and some people there'll be one that is opening. So it's for them to decide, not me.
Hmm.
What I do though is, because as you know, I put the multidimensional field scan, I don't have to be present with the person. I do need their permission. And to me, that is sacred. So whether I'm tempted or not, it's a no-no, unless I have direct permission from the person, not their friend, not their spouse, their brother, their sister, from them. It's a no-no. So I do review what's written and look at, is that understandable? Would somebody want more? And so I do go back in to ensure that I get enough clarity, hopefully, for that person. And they can always come back and come on board for further sessions or on board for mentoring to assist them in aligning with their optimal timeline. So are there options? And as I said, also to clear the mental static, the hormonal imbalance that many people have, the entities, I mean, it just goes on. So what I'm finding is the multidimensional field scan is first base because it covers the main point. Then it's what next? What next? And if there's an optimal timeline, the question is, okay, how do I get onto it? And normally from other parts of the scan, particularly ancestral patterns and the karmic loops, that'll give you clues of this is where you need to go.
Right, right, right. Well, I think, just to share with everyone, the thing for me was the scan identified the reflection, the mirror showed that there was an issue that I have that's preventing me from standing fully in this timeline of going forward, Sight Whisperer, let's go. And it was this thing about the persecution for sharing sacred knowledge. And that's, once that was articulated so clearly, so when it was so seen in the mirror, I went, oh, okay, yes, I know that. So then you go further on, and in number 10, which is timeline alignment, this was so beautiful. And this completely set me free to say, anchor the truth that the sights are the ones being famous, that I'm the lens, not the spotlight. And that just set everything free. So it was that adjustment that said, that's the timeline. I know that that's the timeline. Why am I standing over here? If this timeline, why am I standing over here? And just to see that and go, yes, I'm the voice, I'm the lens, but it's them. It's the sights, it's the trees. And that flipped me straight onto the timeline. So thank you. That was really cool to have someone show me that's what you saw.
And then that's also beautiful because it the field scans highlight things that are in your field that I wouldn't know, although you did have a specific desire and goal from having the field scan. And I do give people an option to answer certain questions that help me guide the scan of what clarity perhaps they require. And it's just been so evolutionary for me in terms of my own growth and understanding. So, for example, with one field scan, this person didn't come back to me. She actually shared with another friend of mine. She said, how did she know? How did she know? You know, I went for a reading a couple of weeks or months ago, and the person had said an Egyptian lifetime and everything. Well, I wouldn't know that. I wouldn't know that. But your field reflects that because you've been told it. That information is in your field. So I can only share that which is in your field. And I get quite a few people say to, one of my friends who's referred a few people, they've gone back to her and say, did you tell her about me? And it's like, no, she didn't. Nothing,
Yep.
nothing. She just said, this person would like a multidimensional field scan. And I always say they need to contact me directly because I need their explicit permission. And this has also been where I've had somebody ask for a field scan for somebody else and say, yes, you have his permission. And I said, I thought long and hard the reason that I was resisting doing this field scan, because something felt off. And I've learned to really, really trust those on-off switches in myself now. So it's given me more of an ability to trust those inner knowings, those inner feelings. And it was very clear when I checked into the field, not for this person, that the person themselves has to ask. Also, this person, I felt that she wanted the field scan more for her understanding of this person. And also that it's not for people at the moment, they're only in the English language. And that means that if somebody has to translate it for you, it will be through their own layer and perception. And to me, the book is a remembrance encoded. The field scans are activations and a remembrance. So, as you know, in the pre-information for the scan, when you receive it, I say it may take anywhere from 24 to 72 hours to land, where you may go into, no, that's not right. And then as you allow it to settle, it starts coming into your field. In fact, 2 days ago, I had an email from somebody I did a scan for like 3 weeks ago. And sometimes I don't hear from people and you wonder, did they land? But it's often through a friend of a friend. They tell me, they went, oh my God. So this person came back to me and it's like it needed its time.
Mm.
She went back to read it and she's embodying it now and wanted further support in integration.
Great. Well, and it is
And
an activation. Absolutely. I mean, one of the gifts is I don't remember what number it is, but at the end, the scan, the mirror had a beautiful ritual for me to to really be powerful standing in this. So you're saying, there are things you need to do to make sure that you are comfortable standing in this optimal timeline. So the fact that the field scan provided me with a ritual to do was like, great,
That
great.
was also, if I recall, and again, this is an interesting thing. I do not retain the information of somebody's field scan, and I don't want to, because then their field would be interfering with my own field. So it's no, and it's really, really important
Yeah.
that I keep myself, clear. But I do remember from your field scan. Most I don't, but I put some additional information for you because I thought it would be, and this is where I often go back for additional information that I feel may be valuable for certain people, and particularly because you have something coming up at the beginning of September that I thought this may be valuable for you right now and to embody. And I have to say, John Paul, what a gift for me, what an honor to have been asked to do your multidimensional field scan. Really an honor. Whenever I speak to people about you, there's so many people using the title shaman, and often it's associated with plant medicine. So, I always reiterate, this is the real deal. And that I know you do not use that title,
Yeah.
an EagleHeart, lightly. It's something you embody. And so, what a gift to see an embodied field scan,
Well,
to be able to mirror. And that would be a field scan that I wouldn't mind a fraction in my own field. It truly was an honor. And of course, when I talk about being on your optimal timeline, that again is your optimal timeline for now, because there's always more, which also led me to these fields are opening up so much for me and for others in terms of your original blueprint and your original intention of what you came in for, and understanding that as well through different scans that are opening up, from the mastery frequency mapping inner technology to the resonance technology, through understanding the mental loops and mental patterns. And right now, I'm about to go into a different research phase for multidimensional organizational field scans.
gorgeous. Because there would be the same loops, there would be the same patterns, the same, yeah.
And from a business perspective, from an organizational perspective, where, of course, more companies are wanting to, be more in resonance, in alignment, be ethical, that it's not just about the money, it's the imprint, the energy field, that the energy signature that you, your business, and your organization leaves in the world.
Yeah.
And that for business consultants, what a fast track for them to have a magnificent scan and blueprint to see the dynamics from a different perspective.
Yeah. I love this.
So I'm just bathing in the wonderful tool,
Yeah.
but activation that this is, and what's opening up for people as they receive these scans. And I'm just feel so blessed, and I do, because it's something that I've desired.
Yep.
And it also fits very nicely with my sessions with the grandmothers
Yes.
many
Well,
years back.
I think it's really, those of us that are doing this kind of work, there's a commitment that we have made to be of service. And
Yes.
it's always a question of be of service how? Be of service doing what? Be of service in what way? So I think this is, every time we talk about this research that you're on now, it's just full goosebumps going, this is so appropriate. This is so perfectly you that yay, carry on, go faster, go faster.
Yeah, it's and playing with it, not making it too serious. Honestly, John Paul, every evening, there's no television or anything. I'm downstairs with my notebook and I'm into the field, and it's just beautiful opportunity for growth. But I feel, I like to be a trailblazer as you do. And it's like when I think of every conversation we've had is so rich, so nourishing. And of course, with source feeding, I talk about different forms of nourishment. And that's a form of nourishment. These scans are a form of nourishment, but our conversations, what I've learned, in terms of these sacred sites, from the mystery schools to the transition, the song of your life, the poem of your life, they've been so rich, and they take you in so many different directions, and such a reverence for all of life. And I was sharing with you the other day when I was out for a walk with a friend of mine in England, and he shared, wait, it's not about going to the tree to give it a hug. Ask permission, allow it to come to you. And when I held my hand there, that the branch slowly and the leaves slowly came closer and closer and closer to kiss my hand. And it was just beautiful. And it's an acknowledgement of the energy of the field, the aliveness that is within us all, and that there's always more to explore.
And that things are conscious. Things have consciousness. And if we can get on that multidimensional wavelength and perceive that, it's normal. So
Yes.
we're just going to work to normalize all of these extra senses that we have so that we live with greater multidimensional intelligence.
Exactly. Beautifully said. Thank you.
Cool. All right. So fear not, everyone. I will give you all the links to Carol's world. The Possibility Hub, because that's where we've been before. But I'll give you the links to her world and the multidimensional field scans. It's incredibly, well, it's beautiful. It's beautiful to see that reflection of yourself. So thank you for that. I'll give the links to everyone. And I think that, the thing that I always say that I love, and I don't want to misquote it, but well, my misquote of your quote is that you help people imagine what they could be. But it's not that you're imposing that. The thing that I love about your work is to help them find the potential of who they are and then step into that. So the quote, as you wrote it, imagine going beyond the boundaries of who you believe yourself to be. And I just think that's so beautiful for people to take to heart. It's the boundaries of who you believe yourself to be. And what if you went beyond that? I love it.
All about being curious.
Yes. Awesome. Awesome. Well, thanks. This has been absolutely, absolutely a treat. And yeah, you and I will, of course, stay tuned, and I'll let people know.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. It's been a beautiful opportunity to share with you again and to share with your audience.
Awesome. So I did okay as a host?
Oh, amazing. Amazing. I hope I did okay as a guest, because I cannot, I think you're probably the same. It's easy to go off into a zone. And this is also, although I like to be prepared and have pages of things, as you know, I haven't got a hope in hell of seeing them without my glasses. I don't like to wear my glasses.
Oh,
But it's also gives you that beautiful trust
yeah.
in, it comes.
Yep.
It comes. You don't need to worry. And may that also be your remembrance that with Regina and all, you may have certain things, but it's just going to be there because the sites, the trees, the grandmothers, they'll all be with you. Just make sure that the grandmothers are not say that do butting in. me.
Absolutely. Cool. All right. Thanks again.
All right. Thank you, John Paul. See you and speak to you soon.
Great.